No matter what you do, you can't seem to get rid of that mentality, that indoctrination. Their goal in life is to become, as they call a martyr, and to blow someone up or commit terror. It reminds the world of what Israel is dealing with. They're fighting an ideology, and it's very difficult, like with Nazi Germany, very difficult to fight that ideology.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Quad Interviews. And this week, we have really a special guest from abroad, somebody who's been a really strong advocate for Israel, but an advocate in general. And his story is fascinating, and I'm proud to call him a friend. Oli London, welcome.
Thank you. A pleasure to be here in your beautiful new studio.
Thanks, Oli. So, Oli, you've had a really interesting journey, I'd like to say, in so many ways. But I want to take you back and illuminate for us how you go from being Mr. Woke, essentially, towards a transition, and then discover that the path that you were on was really not the path that you want, and come back and, in fact, become a real anti-woke advocate. So take us back.
Yeah, so I used to be very, very woke. So until I had a realization a few years ago, but basically I was one of these people that fell victim to the identity cult and, confused with who I was since a teenager. And there's a variety of reasons for that. I got bullied a lot for the way I looked, for the way I behaved. I wasn't like other boys in my class, so got bullied a lot for that. So that was one of the reasons why I felt that I was different and I wanted to change. And then I always had this lack of self-esteem, lack of self-confidence about the way I looked. And I was always confused about my identity. Like, who am I as a person? Can I ever improve this? Can I ever feel better? And in adulthood, I moved to South Korea. And then I kind of found this new world where you can be anyone you want. And people change themselves there all the time through surgery.
In South Korea.
In South Korea, yeah, not the North. I don't think I would have been welcome there.
No, but none of us would do.
But so I had this, I kind of thought maybe I can change myself, and I started undergoing different procedures to try and improve my image. And I started to struggle with identity, and then thought maybe it's because I'm trans. And I went through a number of years thinking and believing that I was trans because I was really trying to escape who I was. I wasn't addressing the real issues that maybe I should find happiness from within and confidence from within. So yeah, I went through that, and only a few years ago, I kind of woke up from all that and realized, I need to learn to love myself, learn to accept myself. And the main awakening was when I became Christian.
Wow, that's a lot to take in. But let me take you back to that point. Do you really think that a lot of the people who are going through all these changes is mainly from lack of confidence or societal pressures? Is that how you feel this movement, that's why you kind of fell prey to this movement?
Yeah, so being a member of that movement, the woke ideology, I kind of can see into people's minds and I can understand their perspectives. And, what's happening with many, many young children across the West, you don't see it really in Asia, in the Middle East, it's across the West, is kids are confused about who they are as a teenager. Some kids get bullied. Some kids, are struggling with other issues. And they are seeing this trend where if you change yourself, you're suddenly getting heaps of praise. You're being, put on a pedestal almost. You're treated as special. So for a lot of kids that have self-esteem issues and they suddenly get all this attention and society kind of treats them, special.
Reinforces that.
It's reinforcing that behavior. So a lot of kids tend to, say they're non-binary or trans. And most of these kids are literally just teenagers. They're going through a phase.
Confused.
Many
can be when your hormones are changing.
Exactly. And, and my thing that I'm very passionate about campaigning about is, we shouldn't be medically transitioning these kids. And as an adult, people can make decisions.
I agree.
Most people are very supportive of adults living their life how they want, but it's when it comes to children, it should be off limits, putting them through the medical system. And studies indicate that, up to 80% of people going through gender dysphoria do grow out of it into adulthood. So it's something that many people grow out. There are, of course, cases where there are people that generally feel like that their whole life, but the majority of people do grow out of it.
And you say that basically you discovered Christianity. How did that happen? And when did you begin at that point to start questioning everything you believed to be true?
Well, I really came to a crossroads in life. I was very unhappy. I'd gone through these gender transition, feminization surgeries on my face, and I wasn't happy. And I was thinking, do I continue down this path? Do I continue doing more things and then getting a temporary happiness fix and then being unhappy even more, or do I actually address these issues? So I just walked into a church one day just for some kind of solace and some peace, and just to see what it was all about. And I felt such a connection that first day. And I spoke to the priests and members of the congregation. They were very welcoming and friendly. And that really motivated me to think that maybe I have the power to change my life. And, kind of
Without having to change your external
exactly,
appearance.
exactly. Instead of working on your internal self, working on that person that's trapped inside.
Well, I think that's probably a societal ill today, that we want the quick fix, don't we? And it's the external or superficial fix rather than the real work that has to be done to fix our unhappiness from within. Okay, so how do you get from that to discovering Christianity to becoming an advocate, and then somehow becoming an advocate for Israel?
Yeah, well, it was over a 3-year period till I became Christian, and I'm still learning every day, still exploring my faith. But that really, when I started to become Christian, it made me change my life. Before it was kind of, as an influencer, it's very narcissistic. It's filming, posting selfies, videos all the time. And I thought, what, this isn't fulfilling me. Maybe if I do something that's giving back to others, that will actually make me feel better. And, trust me, it does. If you, spend your life giving back to others positive energy, you feel good. You feel good at the end of the day. You don't feel like you need to go out and change your external self. So I started just speaking up to kids. I started speaking up for parents. I also authored my book, Gender Madness, which is the same publisher as RFK Jr., Melania Trump, and it really has helped.
Gender Madness is your book?
Gender Madness, and it's really helped so many parents, also helped so many young people
Right.
going through these, whatever struggle they're going through. It's about trying to help them find love from within, trying to, I do talk about faith in my book and how powerful that is. But, kind of doing all these things and learning to give back has kind of led me to where I am today. As I advocate for a variety of issues, from children in the US to, of course, Israel. And I think, all of us have the power to do that. We all have the power to dedicate our lives to making the world a better place.
Well, that's wonderful to hear. But Oli, when did you start? Was it the after October 7th when you saw the madness around you that you said, oh, something's wrong here, to do with Israel? What got you to that point? Because you're an advocate against this kind of forced transition stuff, advocate for doing things that are good from within and giving to people. At what point do you say, oh, Israel should be advocated for?
Well, interestingly enough, I used to be woke, so I did have different political opinions,
Yeah.
because I was fed whatever I saw on TikTok or the news, which
Right.
we all know is not always true, especially in the case of a lot of mainstream media these days. But yeah, so I used to have different political beliefs until I started educating myself about the world, learning and doing my own research, rather than being fed a narrative on TikTok, which, I've kind of fell victim to before. I kind of educated myself, and I've been doing a lot of news reporting, about a variety of issues, speaking about how woke culture is infiltrating schools. And, the October 7th videos, I was, on Twitter and started to see all the videos coming through. Some of them were obviously live streams from Telegram, and it was just unimaginable. I thought, is this real? Is this
Yeah.
actually happening? I'm seeing this unfiltered video on Twitter. And it was really, really just really shocking, and opened my eyes to what is going on here, and I was so horrified. And, I saw a video of a family being held hostage in a home, and the little girl crying on the floor, and, one of her family members had just been shot, and
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. And then, what was just as shocking is people started protesting
Yeah.
almost in support of that. And the same day in London, there was a big protest outside the Israeli embassy, and conveniently, they all had Palestinian flags. They all had placards that were pre-made. And I was shocked that, hang on a minute, this is like one of the worst terrorist attacks. Well, it's equal to 9/11
Yeah.
in history. And for Israel, this is the worst terrorist attack. And the barbarity of it all was just horrifying. And I thought, how are people not seeing this, and how are people not condemning this, and why are all the celebrities in Hollywood not posting about this? And, it was pretty silent from Hollywood.
Yeah, absolutely. So the initial attack shocked you, but then the reaction of the world shocked you even more.
Yeah, like I said, for the last few years, I have been speaking about woke culture. So I kind of saw that these people were not thinking right. And I know with woke culture, people tend to be indoctrinated easily, but I couldn't quite understand these people. Like, why are they protesting or advocating for these people
Yeah.
that had just massacred
Yeah.
1,200 civilians in the most unimaginable ways? And I couldn't believe it. So I started, reporting on it. And then I realized that the pro-Palestinian protest, it actually has nothing to do with Palestine. Just like the Black Lives Matter was meant to be about trying to help Black communities in the US, actually completely,
Really?
I thought all these protests completely stray from the actual message. That they're really kind of about anarchy and hatred towards the West. I mean, these pro-Palestinian protests, they burn the US flag, they chant death to America, death to Israel. So then I realized it's not about Palestine. It's not about Israel. These people are just hateful individuals. They've been brainwashed and indoctrinated. I thought it's important to show that, and to I tweet about it, I report about it, and to show the world the truth of these people.
Well, that's really admirable, because I've been following the amazing work that you've done, and you are really an incredible voice for that. You've now spent, this is your second time in Israel since October 7th. Have you learned something you didn't already know this time?
Well, the first time I came was 2 months after the October 7th attack. So it was very, very emotional.
Raw.
And yes, it was war. And you could feel this dark cloud hanging over Israel and the Israeli people. They'd just gone through this incredibly, unimaginably traumatic event. And, it literally was just so fresh, etched in their minds. So it was very hard seeing it. I went to Kfar Aza, I went inside the homes. I went to the Lebanese border where the Hezbollah attacks continued to happen. And it was just very emotional. And to meet some of the families and to walk in the homes of people when you can still smell the burned bodies. And it was 2 months after you could still smell the flesh.
Yeah.
And just to try and imagine the horror of those last moments.
And this time, have you noticed that we're in a different place?
Well, yeah, this time I've obviously spent a little bit more time this time. I've been all around the country from the north to the south to the Golan Heights to Majel Shams. And one thing that has struck me is the strength of the Israeli people. I've been here when the hostages have been released, like Keith Siegel, Agam Berger, and Arbel as well. So it's a time when there is hope and, there is happiness in the sense that these hostages are being released. But there's still that very dark cloud hanging over about the remaining hostages in captivity, because this ceasefire deal is just about 33 hostages. And of course, there are many more. I met with Rachel Goldberg-Polin, met with First Lady Michael Herzog, and met with a former hostage, Moran.
Yeah.
And, really hearing these firsthand accounts and seeing that the strength, especially of the women, the strength of these women, they've been through hell and they are holding their heads high with dignity. They are holding their heads up for the Israeli people, for the world. They are, trying to give them strength. Like Rachel Goldberg-Polin is just incredible.
She's incredible. Yes, she's incredible. And we were speaking a little earlier, Oli, about the narrative, and this is what you've been fighting. So, I've been saying for a long time that the mainstream media have been completely overtaken by the woke mindset or the virus, whatever you want to call it. But when we were chatting, I asked you, and I'm asking you again, when people in the West see those scenes that we've seen over the last few weeks of basically these bloodthirsty terrorists with the guns in the air, when you see these incredible young women going through the crowds and older men. And Oli, do you think that the world is waking up, or do you think that the world is just moving on? Or do you think nothing's changed?
Well, I definitely think there's a lot of hope in terms of the new US administration with the Trump administration. I think he's a very good ally of Israel.
Yes.
Obviously, Steve Witkoff has been doing amazing things in Israel, securing the release of the hostages. So I do think that, Trump's victory was a rejection of woke.
I agree with that.
It was, people, of course, they have their reasons for voting, but a lot of people were just sick of the woke culture. A lot of people were sick of the pro-Palestine, anti-Israel protests on campus and the lack of action against them. And, Trump has done an executive order to deport pro-Hamas, anti-Semitic foreign nationals. And so I think that is a powerful message to send. It's a message that, you can't get away with this anymore. You can't get away with spreading Jew hatred on campus. You can't get away with, praising a terrorist organization. So I think that has sent a clear message to the world. And of course, whatever happens in the US trickles down and affects the rest of the world. But, those images we saw of, Agamberger and Arbel and, the other hostages being taunted, thousands of people. And it wasn't just Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad. There were kids holding guns. There were women. And it just shows you that nothing has really changed in Palestinian society. There's been 15 months of the war and it's still the same mentality. And no matter what you do, you can't seem to get rid of that mentality, that indoctrination that, their goal in life is to become, as they call a martyr and to blow someone up or commit terror. And it reminds the world of what Israel is dealing with, because
I think so.
They're fighting an ideology and it's very difficult, like with Nazi Germany, very difficult to fight that ideology.
Yeah. But Oli, you've got your finger on the button in social media. You have a huge following. So you really can kind of feel what's going on. How do you feel that narrative is now shaping up? People who said genocide for months now see a society, the Hamas fighting, harassing, bullying. They see these innocent people. Has that changed anybody's minds? Or do you think people are just sick of this and moving on to something else?
Well, it may not seem it sometimes because when we see these protests, it makes Israelis think that the world is against them. But that is not the case. The majority of people are good people and they see what is good versus evil. So the majority of people, specifically in America, do stand with Israel. America is Israel's greatest ally and the majority of people do stand with them. And I think now we're seeing people having some more courage and actually speaking up. But maybe before they were silent, I think, people have seen the truth. People have seen the treatment of these hostages. They've heard the stories, of Amit Susana, who was horrifically assaulted, a strong woman, horrifically assaulted. And to see those images recently of the hostages being paraded on stage, forced to smile, and conveniently Al Jazeera happens to have an exclusive. I think people have woken up and seeing those crowds and seeing that the mentality is still there. Nothing has changed, and the victim mentality, which the mainstream media likes to paint of Gaza, it's not true. And the humanitarian aid is flowing in 600, 900 trucks, 4,200 in 1 week, around 21st, 25th January. And so the narrative has crumbled. The fake news narrative has crumbled. And I think now, thanks to platforms like X, people are actually seeing the truth. And nobody's watching the fake news anymore. Like nobody's watching these channels and, they're struggling with viewership. And now they might actually realize that they actually need to report the truth rather than a biased narrative against Israel.
Oli, you're from London. Oli London is from London. Do you think that Trump coming into power is the beginning of the end of woke?
I mean, Trump has officially ended the woke era. He's, signed executive orders removing diversity, equity, and inclusion policies in all federal departments. He's put all DEI and gender ideology federal government employees on leave. He's now declared there are only male and female genders, which means on passports it'll be male or female, and it's toilets. And, look, Trump, people seem to think Trump is attacking minorities. Trump is a great ally of all people. He sees people at face value. He doesn't judge people based on, if they're LGBT, if they're whatever color they are. His administration, he has the highest ranking gay official, Scott Bessent, who is the US Treasury Secretary. He has a very diverse cabinet, and Trump takes people based on face value, based on
merit, exactly.
And that's, unfortunately, woke was the opposite of that. Woke was hiring people or putting them on a pedestal when they shouldn't be there. Like with hiring a pilot based on diversity instead of talent, that is very dangerous.
Absolutely. Doctors, anything. So, and you think England is going to follow suit, or do you think England is still stuck?
Well, I think we need Trump and Elon Musk to save England. It needs saving.
Really?
I think it's, it's going through a difficult time at the moment with the far left woke government there, and they do come to Israel. They do try to be supportive of Israel, but they pander to both sides. They still fund UNRWA. So they're not real allies. That's my personal opinion. They're not real allies, the government. But yeah, they're not very popular, and not just the UK, and Germany as well. There's an election coming up, and I think people have had enough of the woke. They've had enough of the hatred being spewed at communities, and people can see it for what it is. The Jew hatred. It's not nothing to do with Palestine. It's simple, plain and simple anti-Semitism. So the people themselves have had enough of that. But it's whether the government actually, acts on that and actually protects these minority communities.
Well, I mean, I totally agree with you. I think that the majority of people don't hate Jews, but there is a very strong, hateful minority that somehow, even Richie Torres said this yesterday, that somehow makes everybody believe that they're much bigger than they actually are. But woke did actually seep into every element of life in America. It's seeped into Europe. And I think there definitely is a backlash from people who've just woken up. And we're so grateful that you are one of those people that really saw the light and are now fighting strong for light around the world. And we're very lucky to have you as one of the voices supporting Israel. So Oli, really, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for your support. Come back as many times as you want. You're always welcome in Israel. And we hope that you have Godspeed in the incredible work that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. A real pleasure to be here and to be in Israel. Am Israel High. Thank you.
Thank you, Oli.